I'm having trouble reconciling the notion of free will with the way you describe thought, which I'm going back to the conversation you had with Angela a few days back when she was talking about feeling like there was a controller and a director kind of entity. And at some point in that conversation you said that we don't control our thoughts, they're simply things that arise in our awareness. I'm having trouble because it seems like sort of the decision to come to a retreat or to follow our thoughts inward instead of out to objects, our thoughts themselves, and they seem to be kind of decisional.
Yes.
It has such a quality of a decision making, and I just don't see how it seems like the enlightened duality you speak of is like awareness, and then just thoughts that we don't have much control over. I wonder how we manage to direct our lives with that view.
So when you say we don't have much control over our thoughts, where is the we, the I in the system? So now your experience is thoughts, images, feelings, sensations and perceptions. Yeah? And you are aware of all of those. Now, where is the I in your experience that is orchestrating all of those?
I can't localize one.
Okay. Can you even find an unlocal one?
There it is. No.
I mean, take a thought. You're because you mentioned the decision to come on a retreat, for instance. Yeah. You come home from work, you cook dinner, you sit down, and the thought appears to you, oh, I wonder if Rupert's got a retreat on. Just out of the blue it appears to you. Did you choose that thought? Was there someone or something in the system that selected to have that thought rather than let's watch a movie?
No, yeah, when you break it down to individual thoughts.
Yeah. Okay,
no.
So then the thought, I wonder if there's a retreat on soon, appears to you. Now, the next thought could be, let's say just give it two possibilities. The next thought could be, oh, let's go and have a look. Let's check Rupert's website out. Or the next thought could be, oh, I'll look later, let's watch a movie. Now, do you have any control over which of those two thoughts appears?
It feels like I'm controlling them.
Perfect. Now, in between the two thoughts, the first thought after dinner was, I wonder if there's a retreat on. Yeah? The second thought, the next thought, it's slightly simplistic, this picture, but you understand. The second thought was, oh, I'll look later. Let's watch a movie. Or I'll go and check it out now. So you're suggesting that in between those two thoughts, something was present which chose the second thought. What was that? What is your experience of this something, the chooser, between the appearance of those two thoughts, which controlled which the second thought was?
I don't have an experience of a chooser in between thoughts. It just seems that a series of thoughts, in retrospect, you can look at them and they seem to go in a direction, like you can decide to ponder something.
Exactly. In retrospect, we look at the succession of thoughts, and a thought, which is just thought number 10, looks back and imagines that there is a chooser in the system between each thought. That chooser is just thought number 10.
Mm. Yeah.
It's not actually there in between each of the thoughts.
The notion of a chooser is a thought.
No, what I mean is the chooser itself is not there in between each thought, choosing each time between a range of possibilities, and I'll have that thought next, and then I'll have this thought. That chooser is not there. The notion of a chooser is simply itself a thought, which, as you say, appears retrospectively. The thought says, I was there in between each thought, choosing it. It's the clown that takes the bow. It wasn't actually present, but it claims responsibility afterwards.
I see.
So we have to make a clear distinction between what is actually something quite subtle. There is a choosing thought, but there is no chooser. There is a thought that says, I'd rather have tea than coffee. That thought contains a choice between two drinks, but there is nobody there choosing that thought. The choice is the thought. There is no chooser of the thought.
Okay.
The separate self is always the one in between. It's like a filler thought that is either considered to be the initiator of our actions and thoughts, choices, etc., or the subsequent enjoyer of them. It's never present in the actual thought itself. It's imagined in between. It's like a filler. The I thought is like a filler that seems to be both the initiator of our actions and that's prior to the action, and the enjoyer of it after the action. For instance, take sports is another very good example. During the game itself, if you're playing some kind of a sport, or if you're playing music, for instance, you're so in the moment. If you're playing at the top of your ability, there cannot be the possibility for a separate self. You're so in the moment, you're so in the zone. It's afterwards, when the game is over, that we think, I won or I lost. That I that won or lost was not present in the moment, in the game. It is created solely with the thought, and it's always an afterthought. The separate self is created with that thought. In fact, the separate self, it's not that a separate self is created by that thought. The separate self is that thought.
It just seems to paint a picture of existence as sort of deterministic, as if we are an awareness that's sort of watching a show unfold.
Okay.
Which kind of bothers me, I guess.
No, you're quite right that bothers you, because you're quite right to feel a little rebellion in you, because everybody has not just a taste of, but a love of freedom. I mean, isn't that what freedom, happiness, these are the essential things that we all want. And we feel if our freedom is ever curtailed or taken away from us in any way, we feel a rebellion in us. We know that so well as a child, and as we grow up. We hate to have our freedom restricted. And this comes from a deep intuition that we have, that what we are is free, that life isn't mechanical and deterministic. So I understand why you say this feels a little deterministic. It's only that there is no freedom for a separate self. For awareness, for the one that truly is, there is infinite freedom. Life is not predestined. Awareness is not just watching a mechanical system that was set in place at the beginning of time unfold. It is, from the point of view of awareness, which is the only real point of view, there are infinite possibilities available at every moment. So there is complete freedom. It can go in any direction, in any moment. And that's what we love. We love that sense of freedom. We don't like to be dictated to. And that love of freedom, it shows up in very practical, very ordinary ways. For instance, the retreat center we were at last week, and no disrespect to the retreat center, they were extremely sweet people, and it was a very nice place, but it was a little institutional. We all felt a little bit like kind of marshaled, a little bit, and there's a little rebellion in us. We don't like it. Especially those of us that had spent 10 years in boarding school, that the slightest whiff of kind of institutionalism, it's just something in us goes, no, that's an infringement of my innate freedom. Even in little things, if you go, that's what's so lovely about this place. There aren't signs around telling us what to do and where to go and don't do this and don't do that. I mean, of course, there need to be some signs, but it's kept to a minimum here. We don't feel there are rules and regulations. Of course, underneath that there have to be certain rules, but they're not very present. And so we feel this is like home, because that's how it is at home. You don't have notices up all your home saying, don't go in here. And, don't flush anything down the toilet. Don't do that. We don't like that.
Well, then, does creativity come in from the point of view of awareness? Is awareness spontaneously sort of manifesting our experience?
Yes. Creativity is freedom from the past. Just the ability to... You have the materials that are at your disposal, and your materials at any moment are your thoughts, your feelings, your skills, your body, your material, everything, all together. And yes, that there is the... Creativity is the freedom not just to proceed mechanically in one direction only, but to allow new ideas to come in, to use all these materials that are at your disposal.
Rather than reacting.
Rather than just reacting, which is just a continuation of the same line. Going back a little bit, what we were saying before about freedom. I remember my son, when he was 8 years old, he just starting at the school that he's just left. So it was a 5-year school. It was the first term. At the end of the first week of that term, he came home and he said to his mother, they have an idea of the kind of boy they want me to be at this school, and I'm never going to be that boy. And he was right. He didn't turn into the kind of boy they wanted him to be. And it made life a little difficult for him, not to mention his parents, while he was there. But although I had to a certain extent, encourage him to conform at least enough so that the experience of school was creative and positive, in my heart, I was so happy that he felt that. I was so glad, and I thought to myself, I hope the school don't have the ability to crush that rebellious spirit, that love of freedom in him, which all children have, and actually all adults have, but very often in adults, our culture and everyday life has kind of drummed it out of us. We feel that somehow to love that freedom is somehow going against what is expected of us. No, preserve that sense of freedom at all costs. And for those of us that bring up children, that is one of the best things we can do for our kids, to preserve that sense of freedom and, of course, help them to adapt to society at the same time. But to keep that fierce love of freedom alive. And yes, creativity comes out of that.
Thank you.